Spencer is in the house virtually, I'm very pleased to say, a senior fellow of our Center for Security Policy and a prodigiously impactful contributor to the public policy debate about what I think of as Sharia supremacism and what it means for all of us that it is on the march. Robert, we were talking about the Iran deal briefly. Give us an update on what is in this thing, as best we can tell, and whether it is likely to result in, well, either an end to the nuclear ambitions of the mullahs, as we've been promised again and again and again, or even just an end to the jihadist terrorism with which this regime has most prominently been associated.
Frank Gabriel Noronha, who's a former State Department official, has had access to the deal as it stands. And he warns that it looks as if, from the loosening of various sanctions, from the unfreezing of various assets, the Iranian regime stands to gain $150 billion. And
My Lord.
that money is virtually certain to go to financing international jihad groups. When the Obama administration showered billions of dollars on the Islamic Republic of Iran, we were assured that that money would go to improve the lot of the Iranian people. Not a penny of it went to improve the lot of the Iranian people. It went to Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, and interestingly enough, various leftist political parties in other parts of the world, in notably
Interesting.
Spain. Now, what's wild about the new Iran deal is that it's likely to do the same thing, despite the fact that the Iranian people themselves have been protesting and saying, stop sending money to Gaza, to Syria, to Lebanon, start spending it here on your
Mm.
own people. But the Iranian regime, which probably would have fallen if the Trump era sanctions had continued, is being propped up now by the Biden administration, and directly going against the wishes of its own people is going to be bankrolling terrorism around the world.
Yeah, making it much more dangerous, not just for its own people, but for the rest of us as well, of course. Robert, you mentioned the left, and I appreciate so much the attention you're giving to what I've thought of as the red green axis. This deal with the Iranians is a prime example of it, I suppose. Um, Talk a little bit about some of the research that you've done into the lefts in America and its enthusiasm, of all things, for Vladimir Putin at the moment, specifically the so called squad on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, Frank, really, as the anger at Russia is taking the form of punitive actions against individual Russians who have no influence over Vladimir Putin. One notable holdout in all the hysteria is the Squad, but they're not to be praised for this. They are actually in Putin's pocket for some quite interesting reasons.
Mm.
Ilhan Omar, most notably, has family connections that are involved with Russian oil. And it's
Wow.
interesting to note that she voted against sanctions on the Russian oil industry. Seems to be entirely self serving.
Mm.
And she has come out against sanctions, saying that they always hurt uh, various people involved with them. And yet, of course, she's strongly in favor of the BDS sanctions movement against Israel.
Yes.
So there's no consistency here. It's entirely self serving.
Well, it might be called a conflict of interest, I think, fairly. But when you talk about Ilhan Omar's family relationships, of course, this is a woman who is alleged to have married her own brother. So family ties are a complicated thing for the Omar family, I suppose. Um, One other quick topic, Robert. There is, I think, underway an effort to take a fresh look, shall we say, at Hunter Biden's laptop. The New York Times, no less, has now confirmed, albeit I gather in the 24th paragraph of a long article on the subject, that it actually is Hunter Biden's laptop and the documentation of it is authentic. And I ask this because you had a piece recently in which you asked the question, whatever became of those 50 or so veteran intelligence officers who profoundly assured us that this laptop was Russian disinformation, nothing to see here, folks. um, don't have any qualms about voting for Joe Biden, which was the practical effect of their intervention on the eve of the 2020 presidential election. Do you know the answer? What became of them? And have they changed their tune?
The New York Post recently went to all of them, and almost all of them declined comment. A few of them stuck
Oh,
by the story. The three CIA directors, Leon Panetta, Michael Hayden, and John Brennan, who signed the letter saying that the laptop was Russian disinformation, they declined comment. And it's very clear that this whole thing saying that it was fake was the real disinformation and an indication of how corrupt and partisan our intelligence community has become. And now that the truth has come out and is absolutely definitively established, even by the trusted organs on their own side, they're cornered. But of course, they know that even though the New York Times has now acknowledged this, the New York Times is not going to come after them and say, why did you lie about this to the American people?" And the corrupt establishment is still very much in place to the detriment of us all.
well, the simple truth of the matter is we know why they lied to the American people, and that was to advance the political purpose for which they've devoted much of their highly partisan lives, including in their intelligence community roles. Indeed, I think one of the darkest aspects of what's been done to this country in the wrecking operation during the years in which the intelligence community waged war against Donald Trump, and then most especially during this administration, has been the weaponization of our national security agencies, and of course the intelligence agencies, most especially, for partisan political purposes. It's not just scandalous, really. It is a desperately serious threat to the country of this constitutional republic. And I fear, Robert, that if these folks are not held accountable, there will be more of this to come. And I appreciate you calling them out. And I hope that there will be more evidence of how truly dishonorably they've conducted themselves and possibly criminally. So, certainly engaging in political manipulation at a critical time in our history. Thank you, Robert Spencer. Come back to us again very soon if you would. I hope the rest of you will do the same. Thank you for listening to this edition of Securing America. Check out securingamerica.tv for more, and then go forth and multiply.